Some important corporate news. We're breaking into the normal programming simply because of this development that has happened. The Corporate Affairs Ministry has moved the bankruptcy court, asking the NCLT to take over the management control of Unitech. Shruti Srivastava of Bloomberg News, who broke this story, joins us right now on the phone line with the details. Shruti, tell us the details. I have these couple of flashes, if you can fill in our viewers with the details.
Yes. So the Ministry of Corporate Affairs filed a petition with the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, last week, pleading with the court that the court should allow it to take over the management of the company on the grounds of gross mismanagement and diversion of funds. Now, my sources tell me that the government also wants to appoint 10 of its nominee directors on the board of the company for the interim period till a final solution to the problem can be sought. This basically comes in wake of 19,000 buyers who are still awaiting possession of their flats, and there are some 15,000 small depositors whom the company has defaulted in payment of rupees 592 crore. Keeping this in mind, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs thought it in the public interest to approach NCLT to take over the management control.
I think the flashes also say that the government is likely to seek court approval to take control of Unitech as well. I don't think we'll be able to figure out any timelines to this, Shruti, but I don't know of any past experiences like this that would have happened, but any thoughts on this one before we get in our guest on board?
Yeah, in the past, as far as I can remember, only in the case of Satyam and Mehta's did the company, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs moved the company law board then to take over the management control of those two companies in which the promoter had admitted to committing a fraud. That's the only instance I can remember so far, but I don't think so the government of India has ever moved court apart from Satyam and Mehta's to take over control of any other company.
Shruti, you may want to stay on. I don't know how busy you are, but you may want to stay on. We're also joined by Sanjay from Crawford Bayley with his thoughts as well. Maybe Shruti would probably have a question as well. But Sanjay, my first question to you, I think we brought it up rightly. To our memory, such a thing wherein the government seeking the court approval to take control of a publicly listed company has not happened since the Satyam and the Mehta's days.
That's correct. Since the Satyam and the Mehta's days, no other company, the central government or the MCA has taken control over. But my recollection says that way back in 1957-58, where there was a fraud committed by a gentleman by the name of Haridas Mundra, at that point in time, a similar action was undertaken by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs then. But otherwise, in the recent past, except for Satyam and Mehta's, no other company such an action has been taken.
And I think Menka will be joining us any moments from now as well. But Sanjay, one question. Having just spoken to a couple of people right now, just before we came on air, people said that this is probably a good piece of news. Do we have Menka with us? Because then I would actually want to first get her in opinion as well. Menka, okay, yeah, hi. Menka, what do you make of this development?
No, I think like you pointed out and Shruti has pointed out on this breaking news story by Bloomberg that this is a very rare instance of the government using a power under the Companies Act to be able to seek the prevention of oppression and mismanagement, from what I understand. Now, I don't have clear details from you or Shruti on specifically which section they're doing this under, but I'm sure Shruti can help us understand that. And Sanjay will clarify that there are fairly wide powers now with the tribunal having received this application from the government to consider the next course of action. And those wide powers include, the dismissal of the current management of the company and any other action that the tribunal deems fit in public interest, as the center would have used that as the basis for wanting to move against the company in this matter.
Okay, Menka, just stay on. I don't know if Sanjay could hear you, but let me first get in Shruti on this. Shruti, any details about what sections have been used in order to make this move?
So the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has invoked Section 6 for 241 and 242, saying which basically the central government can use if it thinks that the company's management is acting in a manner which is prejudicial to public interest. The central government can step in and take reins of the management. So these are the two sections which the ministry has invoked to take control of the management.
This would probably be a big notice to some of the errant builders as well. Hitherto, this fraternity has been relatively untouched except for certain other sects that allowed buyers to go out and approach the courts. But Sanjay, your thoughts, what's the way ahead? That's what probably Menka was saying, that we need to find out from you. What's the way ahead? You heard Shruti give out the sections as well under which this has been proceeded.
Yeah, that is correct. Section 241, subsection 2 provides the central government, which is MCA, the powers to move the company law board if it is of the opinion that the affairs of the company are being conducted which are prejudicial to the public interest. And then the same process as you have in any petition of oppression and mismanagement, then the process starts. And then the tribunal has very wide powers in respect of that particular company if a case is made out that the affairs of the company are being conducted in a manner which are prejudicial to the public interest. And then theoretically the entire board can change, setting aside agreements, removal of the managing director, removal of the directors, and wide powers have been provided under the Companies Act 2013 for anyone to seek relief under Section 241, subsection 2.
Okay. Menka, you would have some questions for Sanjay, I believe.
Yes, Neeraj, I think as Sanjay laid out, these are fairly wide powers that the tribunal has. Sanjay, I would imagine that the government is citing or would be citing home buyers' interest as the public interest in this matter, given that, specifically this company has not been able to deliver homes in time or deliver apartments or real estate in time, despite people having been paid up. I want to try and understand, this is not the only instance in this country of companies not having been able to do that. How precedent setting is this? Because like Shruti pointed out right in her first answer, we have not seen the government move to take over the management of a company very often in the past, probably in the case of Satyam Mehta, which was a very big fraud. Now that the government is choosing to do so in the Unitech case, citing the interest of home buyers, would you imagine that other builders ought to be very, very careful and cautious in the days to come?
Absolutely. The builders or the real estate developers will have to be very careful in order to deliver the commitment which they have made to the people who have booked the apartments or the office units, because the powers under 241 are extremely wide, and the central government can initiate actions, and including order from the tribunal to transfer the shares to anybody else or to allot further shares to anybody else, which would result that the company being taken away from the existing promoters or the people under the existing management.
Sanjay, one more question on this, and that is that, typically drop for us, what happens in the case of the shares of this company? This is a listed company. I'm sure that public shareholders must be wondering what goes on from here onwards. Now, we don't have any practice in this country of freezing shares when matters like this come to court. But this cannot spell good news for public shareholders. What in your view could be any relief at all for public shareholders if there is any such provision or any such explanation that the law may provide?
Yeah, but for a public shareholder, it's only a temporary aberration, because once the tribunal orders for a new management to come, thereafter the mechanism, just as the mechanism was put in Satyam and Mehta's, will kick in, and a new set of shareholders or a new set of promoters may come in, which would be ultimately in the benefits of the public shareholders. So it's only an aberration which is there for the time being until we reach the logical end, in my view.
So what the next few steps would be, assuming that the tribunal admits this petition and acts as per the sections laid out in law. In the case of Satyam Mehta, it involved the sale of the company to prospective bidders, and eventually, we had a leading IT company buy out some of the businesses. What do you think might be the course that the government might take here? I know we're speculating, but do you think this could eventually mean that Unitech would end up in the hands of some other prospective buyer? And what would those conditions be? Would that prospective buyer have to promise equity infusion, have to promise, delivery of flats? What do you think could be the condition?
Yes, the ultimate end objective would be to deliver to the buyers the apartments or whatever has been promised by Unitech and taken consideration or taken money for that. So the new person who will come in would obviously will have to deliver what all old management has not delivered. That is number one. Two, may have to bring in more money in order to revive the affairs or the operations of the company. And three, obviously it will have to evaluate as to what is their upside in the event it does come in as the majority shareholder or as a shareholder who will have the management and control of the company.
So in your mind, Sanjay, if I've understood this correctly, here are the steps that this process will follow from here on. The tribunal would listen in to the government's point of view on this matter. I'm trying to use simple language and not legal language. If the government is able to prove that it is detrimental to public interest for this company to continue being managed by the current management, the tribunal may allow for the government to take over the control of the company, in which case the government would then put in new management of sorts. That new management would eventually be interim management, and that interim management would eventually seek a sale of the company or its assets, etc., to some new buyer who is willing to infuse funds and is willing to come true on the promises made by the company in the past. That would be the logical series of steps from here onwards, according to you?
Absolutely. That would be the logical step. Here onwards, once the tribunal hears the matters, and once passes an order in relation to Unitech.
And just one quick last question, Sanjay, and that is that the promoter may not go down without a fight. In this case, really, what options does the promoter have to be able to battle this move by the central government, and what is the likelihood of success?
I mean, one will have to see the facts of the case as to whether Unitech has done something which it cannot defend. In other words, if there was diversion of funds, or in the event they have not completed the projects as promised because of lackadaisical approach, or because they have siphoned off the assets of the company. Now, if the department or the MCA brings about a case to say that yes, A, there has been diversion of funds, B, there is siphoning of the funds and the misappropriation of the assets of the company, then it will be difficult for Unitech to defend that. So it all depends on the facts, because the MCA will plead that the affairs of the company are being conducted in a manner which is prejudicial to the public interest. Now, it gets into prejudicial to the company interest in case there are related party transactions where the money is being taken away, the funds of the company have been taken away, the assets of the company have been misappropriated or misused. So if the MCA or the central government can demonstrate that, then it will be difficult for Unitech to defend that. Okay. And then obviously the tribunal would not want to make a precedent where a defaulting developer can get away with such a operation.
Sure. No, I think that's a valid point. And just final thoughts on this one. Sandip Bhagat, partner at SNR Associates, also joins in. Sandip, you just heard the conversation as well. What would you believe would be the future course of action? One, from the government side. Two, for the promoter as well, for the embattled promoter. Will he have a chance to kind of reverse this course as we see it?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I think, look, the last time they did it, which was in the Satyam case, I think it was a fait accompli there. The situation and the facts may be quite different here. There may be other companies, so it's a fairly drastic step here for the government to take. It has the powers. I don't think we will question that. It does have the powers under the Companies Act to act if they believe the business is being conducted prejudicial to the public interest. I would expect the promoters to fight, on the basis that this isn't something which they may be trying their best. This isn't something which is there may be hard times, they may be having problems raising money, etc. While all of that it's ordinary course for any company. Those would be presumably the arguments a promoter would take. So I think it's it is quite a step the government has taken. I think it would be interesting to see where it comes out. As Sanjay said, we don't know the facts on the basis of which the government has invoked its powers under Section 241. It can invoke the powers, that is true. Whether the court will buy it at the first level, which is NCLT, or whether it will be challenged, I think it is certainly throwing up an interesting, set of facts and a case law which we'll follow.
Menka, any questions or any final thoughts? Any questions for Sandip, or maybe your final thoughts?
Well, Neeraj, no, I think we've gotten from both senior lawyers a fairly good idea of what the course ahead would be. This is not necessarily a slam dunk, as Sandip pointed out, but then let's not forget that the Unitech promoter has been arrested in the past for the lack of being able to fulfill promises to home buyers. This is a critical issue that the country is facing right now, because this is not the only company that has defaulted on being able to deliver homes. So I think there are a couple of messages, and I don't know if Sanjay and Sandip will agree with me on this, but the message that this move sends out is that you cannot deal with these things mildly. The government taking such drastic, steps, as Shruti has reported today, is significant. It sends the message out that developers need to be much, much more careful about the promises that they've made and their ability to fulfill them. How the legal case goes on from here is difficult to predict. The government has the powers to do what it has sought to do. The promoter will maybe fight back. No idea on what success he may have in being able to fight back. But I think the message is loud and clear, and this message will go out to the developer community that they can no longer deal with home buyer interests frivolously in any fashion whatsoever. I think that's the key takeaway from what the government is attempting to do today, and this is a fairly drastic step, as both lawyers have pointed out, but one that we will watch with great interest in the days to come to see how this progresses.
Okay, Menka, thanks for that. And sorry.
Before you say goodbye to me, just one question. I really do think we need to think about how public shareholders are impacted in a situation of this type, right? I mean, the stock can go nothing but south from here on until some stability comes to this company, or until some predictability comes to the legal process. And that can only be to the detriment of public shareholders. And that too is part of public interest, isn't it? Because they have not done anything wrong in investing in this company. So I think we need to think about what the implications could be for public shareholders, which is exactly what our audience must be wondering right now. If they've invested in Unitech or any other such developers, what happens to them? How does the government protect their interests? And that's something that we will only find out in the days to come.
Yeah, I mean, for now, don't look at this knee-jerk reaction. It is 8.5% higher, but it's difficult to say really, because I presume, Menka, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would presume that it will be dependent on what the mode of action is, whether there is a new developer coming in, taking over the assets and the liabilities, executing them, or it's piecemeal or otherwise. So it's difficult to probably figure out right now as to what this would be. In days to come, we'll get to know, but it's a very pertinent point, yes. What happens to minority shareholders, whoever is still a minority shareholder of Unitech? There are a bunch of people, don't know for what reasons, but yeah, there are people who are still invested in the stock. Interesting to see what happens there. But thanks so much, Menka, for taking time out and joining us on the phone line, as well as our guests as well. Thank you so much to both our esteemed guests for coming in and giving us that perspective. And Shruti, thanks for breaking that story and joining us on air as well. Any final thoughts that you have, Shruti, on this?
No, just one thing, that the government is investigating the allegation of diversion of funds in the company. So it will be interesting to see, what the final report is, because right now they had the preliminary details on the basis of which they conducted the investigation. But now that they will conduct a full-fledged investigation into the allegation of diversion of funds, it will be interesting to see what are the final findings of the government.
Watch. Thanks a lot, Mr. Asher, for joining us and giving us that perspective as well as Mr. Bhagat. But that's it on this coverage at least. Unitech, the stock excited. Don't know if it'll stay excited for the best part of the trading day as well or no. What we'll do is though spot some very interesting trends in minutes from now. So take a break here. In about a few minutes, we come back with Navneet and Agam with trend spotting.